Sandman.
Greetings friends. In this video I will tell you another scary story written by me. This time, we will go to an old lighthouse, where for mysterious and inexplicable reasons its keepers disappear. The protagonist of the story will have a hard test in which he will face to face with what has been lurking in the darkness under the lighthouse since ancient times. I have decided to call this story, The Keeper of the Light. The old lighthouse stood tall and proud on the rocky cliffs overlooking the churning sea. It had kept watch over this treacherous coastline for well over a century, its beacon guiding countless ships to safety. But now it was Jason's turn to take up the watch. He was the new lighthouse keeper, taking over after old Harold passed away. As Jason drove up the winding path to the lighthouse, he felt a sense of foreboding. There was something lonely and isolated about this place, perched high above the crashing waves. Still, it was a job and he needed the money. His wife Lauren had not been happy about him taking a post so far from home, but they needed the income. Jason parked and stepped out, looking up at the towering lighthouse. It was an impressive stone edifice, weathered by the salt and wind. The original Fresnel lens, now electrified, was still in use after all these years. As he climbed the spiral stairs to the top, Jason thought of all the keepers before him that had kept the light burning over the turbulent sea. The living quarters in the lighthouse were basic but comfortable. Jason figured he would be spending most of his time in the tower anyway, keeping the light functioning and the lens clean. He cooked a simple dinner, then read for a bit before heading up to the lamp room to make sure the light was working properly. As he climbed the metal stairs to the top, the beam of the lamp sliced through the darkness in a bright arc. Jason made a circuit of the catwalk around the lens, inspecting the equipment. As he glanced out past the thick glass panes, the sweeping beam illuminated the churning sea for an instant before plunging it back into blackness. Over the next few weeks, Jason settled into a routine, keeping the lighthouse working smoothly. He appreciated the natural beauty of the rugged coastline, though the isolation could weigh on him at times. At night, the only companionship was the cry of the gulls and the periodic foghorn cutting through the darkness. About a month after taking up his post, Jason first noticed the strange sounds. It started one night as he was reading in the living quarters. A scraping, skittering sound, like sharp claws on stone. It seemed to be coming from the walls. Jason sat up, alarmed, but the sound stopped as suddenly as it started. He tried to convince himself it was just the wind outside or the building settling. But over the next few nights, he heard the odd scraping again, sometimes even what sounded like eerie whispers. Jason inspected every inch of the tower and living quarters, searching for rats or other animals that could be making the noises. But he found no signs of intruders. He took to spending more time in the lamp room high up in the tower, feeling safer there. Jason chalked it up to the isolation getting to him, but couldn't fully shake the uneasy feeling the sounds provoked. The noises continued sporadically over the next week. Jason asked some of the locals in town if they had ever heard strange sounds at the lighthouse, but they just laughed it off as new job jitters. One night, as Jason sat reading in the living room, the scratching sounds started up again, more insistent this time. Louder and louder, the eerie clawing and scrabbling sounds surrounded him, until it felt like they were inside the very walls. Jason leapt up, unnerved and angry. Grabbing a heavy wrench, he shouted into the empty room, "Who's there? Show yourself." The noises stopped abruptly. His voice echoed in the silence as his heart pounded. Jason stood there for minutes waiting, wrench poised to strike. But the sounds did not start up again. Utterly drained, he collapsed into bed and fell into a troubled sleep. The next morning, resolved to get to the bottom of this, Jason searched every corner of the lighthouse from top to bottom. As he was examining the rock wall of the living quarters, he noticed a stone that jutted out slightly from the others. When he pushed on it, it slid back with a grinding sound, revealing a dark opening behind the wall. Jason stared into the blackness. A dank, musty odor emanated from within. Steam billowed out, suggesting a depth or tunnel of some kind. Heart thumping, Jason got his flashlight and cautiously moved through the opening. The narrow tunnel beyond sloped downward through the rock. Jason followed it warily, the bobbing flashlight beam the only light. About 20 feet in, the tunnel opened up into a large cavern. Jason swept the flashlight around the cave. His breath caught in his throat as the light illuminated a monstrous shape crouched among the rocks. The creature was at least 10 feet tall, with 8 jointed legs and a plated, arachnid-like body. It seemed to be sleeping, but Jason sensed danger emanating from its hulking, alien form. He knew instinctively that this thing was ancient, possessing a dark primal power. As Jason watched in horror, it stirred, emitting an angry, clicking hiss. He stumbled backwards as the creature rose up and turned towards him, its multiple eyes glinting ominously in the flashlight beam. Panicked, Jason scrambled back up the tunnel to the wall opening. He heard the thing scuttle after him, claws rasping the stone. Jason squeezed through into the living quarters and shoved the rock door closed, hearing a thud as the creature slammed against it from inside. He knew the blocked opening would only contain the monstrous being for so long. Terrified, knowing he couldn't handle this on his own, Jason ran to his truck and sped into town. The locals in the pub quieted and stared as the frantic, wild-eyed keeper burst in. He breathlessly told of the creature in the cave beneath the lighthouse. The room erupted into uneasy laughter. They told him he must be imagining things, or that it was a prank. Jason pleaded with them to come see the proof, but no one believed this outlandish tale. Dejected, Jason returned to the lighthouse to face the horror alone. Back inside the living quarters, all was silent. The rock door remained sealed. Jason knew he had to go down there and make sure the creature was contained. Gripping a hatchet, he steeled himself and moved the stone. The opening gaped darkly again. Bracing himself, Jason activated the flashlight and slowly descended into the tunnel, the familiar fetid smell creeping up to meet him. Heart thudding against his ribs, Jason swept the light around the cavern. He froze as it landed on the creature crouched in the middle of the cave. Seeing the keeper, it let out an angry shriek and scuttled towards him. Jason cried out and stumbled backwards into the tunnel, dropping the flashlight. In the pitch blackness he could hear stone crunching under the thing's claws as it barreled up the tunnel after him. Scrambling on hands and knees, Jason made it to the top just as a heavy body slammed into him from behind, sharp claws scraping at his legs. Jason yelled and kicked out, making contact with something hard yet pliant. He crawled forward into the living quarters and grabbed the hatchet laying on the floor just as the creature emerged from the tunnel. Its eyes glinted with primordial menace as it hissed at him, mandibles clacking. As it lunged forward, Jason swung the hatchet with all his might. The sharp blade sunk into one of the thing's legs, releasing a gush of foul-smelling ichor. It screeched and recoiled, thick limbs thrashing in agony. Seizing his chance, Jason dove past it into the tunnel. Just as the wounded creature swiped at him with a razor-sharp claw, Jason squeezed through the rock opening and shoved it closed. He heard the monster throw itself against the sealed entrance over and over, shrieking furiously. But the rock held. Exhausted and trembling, Jason sank to the floor, the screeches echoing through the walls. He knew the creature was contained for now, but it was only a matter of time before it found a way out. Determined to stop the creature himself, Jason decided he had to collapse the tunnel, sealing the monster inside forever. He toiled for days with pickaxe and shovel, chipping away at the supporting rock walls deep within the tunnel. The work was treacherous and exhausting, all while dreading the creature would break through and come for him. Finally, many sleepless nights later, Jason sensed the tunnel was near collapse. He worked by lamplight, covered in dirt and sweat, the pickaxe strikes echoing through the tight space. With one final blow, the rock wall crumbled and a rush of dust filled the tunnel. Jason clawed his way back up the shaft as crashing sounds reverberated below him. As he emerged into the living quarters, the floor trembled beneath his feet. With a deafening roar, tons of stone collapsed into the gaping pit behind, snuffing out the lamplight. A rush of air blew past Jason as decades of accumulated evil were entombed forever. Later, as the dust settled, Jason replaced the rock door sealing the now blocked tunnel. Though he could still hear the echoes of scrabbling from deep within, he knew the lighthouse's ancient creature was buried forever. Jason stayed on for many years as keeper of the light that stood tall the proud through tumultuous sea. The mysterious noises never returned, as if a dark curse had been lifted from that storied rock. Jason kept the secret buried within, the only keeper who truly knew the unfathomable thing the lighthouse kept watch over.